Okay, I'm going to get started. Welcome. My name is Russ Danner. I'm Vice President of Products with Crafter Software, and this session is about why leading enterprises choose Crafter CMS for web content management. And what I'm going to try and do is not give you a sales pitch. I want to talk about 5 things that you should be thinking about with respect to web content management, and 7 reasons, or 7 things that differentiate some of the players that you might be looking at. And basically, Crafter does these things, so I don't really have to say that throughout the presentation, but the things that I'm talking about I think are important, and Crafter addresses them. So for those of you who are not familiar with Crafter, we are an award-winning content management and web experience management platform for Alfresco. We've been named Solution of the Year many times. We've been awarded trend-setting products by eContent and by KM World multiple times in a row. And the platform is open source, so all the code is out on GitHub. You're welcome to download it, to contribute to it, to submit pull requests. For me, being open source means that it's just about not being locked into a vendor, right? Crafter Software provides support, which is the way we make our money, and that means that we have, I think, a really honest business. We have to earn your business. Just to give you a sense of who's using Crafter, this is just a couple logos of companies that are using Crafter. The key point here is that there's no specific vertical, right? It's finance, education, telecommunications, e-commerce, hospitality. It's all over the place in terms of vertical, but these are all organizations that have lots of content, major workflows, significant traffic, or some combination of those types of things. And every logo up here represents a real substantial project of some kind. There's no logo up here that's just sort of, we put up a landing page for you and so now we put your logo on our slide. These are all real projects. And so speaking about customers, today it's all about customers. It's about your customers, not just our customers. And because of the focus on customers today, you see Forrester, you see Gartner, and all the analysts saying that customer experience is so important in today's setting that it's going to become the #1 priority for the executive suite. Okay, and just to kind of put some numbers around this, I love this chart here. Forrester actually created an index of publicly traded companies where they looked at companies where they could measure their stock price who focused on customer experience, and companies that didn't, right? So in the index they have a wide range of different companies, and the ones that focus on customer experience, that really excel there, their stock price really grew over 6 years, okay, by 43%, and the companies that really are laggards in terms of customer experience, their stock price fell. And the control here is the S&P 500. So you can see that that a focus on customer experience matters, and your web content, your digital experience is a huge part of customer experience today. Okay, and the way that you make customer experience really good is following what I call the 3 C's: to be very consistent with your experience, to be contextual with your experience, so try to understand where the user is, what they need, and serve them in that moment, and to be conversational, to be bidirectional. And I think there's 5 pillars of web experience management that help you do that. So I'm going to take you through those 5 pillars, and then we'll look at some 7 reasons that help you differentiate these systems. So the first pillar is easy to use web content management. And when you think about ease of use, you have to think about different roles. Okay, in a content management system, you've got a content team. These are typically non-technical people who are editing content, that are creating different experiences, and they need really user-friendly tools. We're going to talk about what they need. You have specialists. These are technical people, but in a very narrow space. They edit, they create photos, or they create images, videos, audio, that kind of thing. They have expert tools. And then you have web ninjas. This is actually a role that a lot of CMSs don't take into consideration, but I think it's an important one if you want to be agile. And that is somebody who is part of the operational team who can do lightweight coding, can handle CSS, JavaScript, and even some server-side scripting, but who can create new functionality based on existing services. And then below this blue line, you have developers and system admins. These people should not be involved in your CMS on a daily basis. If they are, you should talk to us. We can help you with that. But they should be either involved in a project basis or from the system administration perspective, they're there to keep the dial tone present. So make sure that the systems are updated, and make sure that the servers are running and so on. They're monitored. So what makes it easy for authors? So the first thing is that you need in-context preview. You need to be able to see what you're going to be publishing. You also need to have you need to be able to build experiences without coding. So for those non-technical authors, they can't code at all. So they're going to need really rich tools, and in-context editing is one of those tools to be able to find something you want to edit, click on it, and edit it. Also, they need to be able to manage layouts, so drag and drop is a big deal here. I want to be able to move components around on a page or add new ones, and I shouldn't have to code to do that. For designers and for your content specialists, they want to use rich tools. They're used to using things like Photoshop and Dreamweaver, and to ask them to get into your CMS and use your web tool is a tall order. They might do lip service, but most often they'll just not use the CMS. So if you need a platform that actually lets you use rich tools and then integrates that with the CMS. And as you know, Alfresco is all over this. You can connect all kinds of rich desktop-based tools to Alfresco, and of course, Crafter sits on Alfresco. So for web ninjas, I think it's important that your framework lets you use, or your platform lets you use, any UI framework that you want. A lot of CMSs will either have their own front-end framework or they'll restrict what you can use. But there are different frameworks that are good for different purposes, and you want the freedom to use whatever framework you need to use. You also want a system that uses templates so that you can present the same content in different ways in different contexts. Okay, so this is just sort of an example of that. And I think for the Web Ninja, you want to get rid of Vlad the deployer. From my perspective, one of the biggest things that kills rapid innovation is, especially in the Java space, is that heavy deployment cycle where you get your job done, but then it takes a week to get your code out into the NOC. And if you can do some server-side scripting and that code can be managed in the repository, and you can test it in your tool, and you can deploy it from your tool, and if it doesn't work, you can revert it from your WCM tool, you can really innovate quickly. So what about devs and system operators? Since they're not in the system on a daily basis, kind of move them till later. We'll talk about them now. The second pillar here is multi-channel. So you want a platform, WCM, that can support multi-channel. When I say multi-channel, most people think, well, mobile. And of course, mobile is not the only channel out there. Just to kind of go back here, all of these things are channels. Your mobile environment, kiosks, social networks, email, wearable devices, your on-premise experience. So all of those are channels where you can deliver content. And like I said, most people think of mobile as multi-channel. The reason it's the most important is because it's the fastest, it's got the fastest rate of adoption. This is a great report here, KPCB, and they're really showing how mobile is really becoming the dominant way people are coming to websites. And so if you're not looking at your web metrics, you should really consider taking a look there and seeing if getting either a responsive design or an adaptive design to your sites and your digital experiences is eminent or important for you, but for most people it really is. But it's not just about screen size, right? So handling mobile devices is much more than just scaling your content to fit on that screen. From my perspective, it's all about adding context. Okay, so when you're on a mobile device, that means you may be away from your house, you may be out doing something, and so I can perhaps detect where you are, and I can give you a completely different experience. I think JetBlue is really good at this. I don't have that slide in this deck, but they actually will on their desktop experience, it's order tickets and it's a lot of promotional content. On the mobile app, it's all actionable. Book a ticket, check a status of a flight, and so on. So that's what I mean by contextualize. This is another example of that. This is a customer of ours, Marriott, who has in their hotels, they have these large screens where users can, with guests can go and see, what's happening around the area, what the weather's like, and so on.
What was the name of
JetBlue. It's JetBlue Airlines, yeah. Another thing about mobile is that it adds new ways to work. I think the Apple Store is a great example of this. You want to take advantage of this, which is that in the Apple Store there's no lines. Every employee has a device. They can see your customer history. They can see their inventory and so on. So they can answer a lot of questions, and they can all check you out. There's no line in the store. The only line is the one kind of waiting to get in. And so multi-channel can actually provide completely new and unique and exciting experiences for your customers. You also need a WCM that has the ability to adapt, right? That can take on a new channel. Everybody knows that when a new channel comes out, and just think back to Twitter, the early adopters to a channel are the people that dominate that channel. So if you have a WCM where you have to wait till the next release of the platform to handle that channel, you're sunk. So you want a platform that can adapt. And then finally, with respect to multi-channel, you want to be able to publish. So it's not just about people coming to your systems and pulling content from you. You want to be able to push content to them. There are a lot of channels like social networks and things that aren't going to necessarily pull content from you. You want to push. The third pillar is personalization. Okay, and personalization is all about standing out and providing real value to the customer. And that's, you do that by contextualizing the experience. So this is that JetBlue slide that I was talking about. This is the mobile experience, very actionable. This is the desktop experience. It's much more, marketing oriented. And the idea is that when you're on that site, you have time to browse. You have time to think about, maybe I'll take that cheap flight to Tahiti. And personalization is all about getting the right content to the right person in the right place at the right time, right? So it's that contextualization. Pillar number 4 is engagement. I know this is going quickly. Today the web is much less anonymous. It's much more social, and our customers expect to be able to leverage that to interact with us and with other customers. And so you really need a platform that has strong user-generated content like comments, ratings, polls, and so on. You also want to consider and include activity feeds. This lets your customers know what potentially their friends are doing, what they might also be buying. It can have kind of a peer pressure effect that can be good for you. And relationship graphs. This is a huge value. If you can allow your users to build relationships with other users on the platform, then you can use that to understand who they are and what they might want. And then use that information judiciously, and you can give the user a better experience. And then I think the last part about engagement is really giving the user the ability to share. Word of mouth is a much better way to market than to traditional marketing. So giving the user the ability to, giving the user a mouthpiece to share your content, to share their thoughts, is a great way to take advantage of that word of mouth in a virtual environment. And pillar, pillar number 5 is integration. So you want a platform that integrates well. And when when I'm thinking about integration, I'm going to talk about marketing systems integration. But there's all kinds of integration depending on your use case. You might be talking about integration with a back-end e-commerce system or billing systems, or and so on. But the example that I brought today is marketing systems, and this is chiefmarchitect.com, and every year this guy puts out this landscape, okay, and it's a huge image where he's got email marketing and mobile marketing, and then he's got all the companies in each of these boxes. And WCM is just one part of this, right? And I blew that up, so here you can see Crafter and Adobe and Drupal and all those others. in there, and everything else is a potential integration. Okay, and so a lot of marketing departments need several of these things. Okay, and there's a couple different strategies here. One alternative strategy to integration is a suite. Some platforms basically provide all of these different boxes or different solutions out of the box. And I actually think it's a lot like this pocket knife here, where you've got one set of branding and then a lot of individually not integrated tools that are just sort of packaged together. The integration is just the branding and the marketing. And then the tools themselves are not integrated, and they're not necessarily the best tool out there for the job. They're just the one that company could buy or acquire or build. So that's kind of what I think of suites. I think a much better approach is a best of breed approach, where you take the tools that you're already using, like Omniture or Google Analytics or Salesforce, and you bring those together in your platform and use them. Well, I gotta get moving here. I'm pretty far over. So now I want to talk about 7 characteristics that separate one system from another. So if you talk to any WCM vendor, they're going to say, oh yeah, we have all that stuff. So how do you know which platform to pick? So the first is it multi-site, is it multi-tenant, right? You want a system that allows, every company has more than one website. You want one platform where you can manage a lot of different sites on the same platform. This is an example of Hershey's. They run a couple hundred sites on Crafter because they have a site for every brand. You also want a strategic solution, right? So if you're going to do content management, you might as well take advantage of a platform that can do all kinds of content management for you: records management, document management, case management, and so on. Because if you get all that in one repository, you can do some really good things for the user experience. And of course, this Alfresco is really great at this, right? With Crafter in the Alfresco family, you have a single platform, a single technology set that can do all of your enterprise content management. And you also want a platform that has a lot of different hosting options, or at least supports the hosting options that you specifically need. And I think there are 4 different types. There's on-premise, where you manage the infrastructure and the software. There's a managed service, which some people call cloud, which is really just outsourcing IT to somebody else. There's true SaaS, where you just pay and use the software. You don't have to worry about the software upgrades or the platform. And then there's hybrid, which is cloud and on-premise. And that means something different to people depending on who's telling you about it. In the Alfresco world, that means that there's an on-premise repository, there's a repository in the cloud, and they can sync together. And actually, Crafter can take advantage of that Alfresco cloud capability. So you can actually have people outside your firewall contributing content, writing stories. Maybe you're a news organization and you have stringers out in the field writing stories. They don't need access to your firewall. They don't need access to your CMS. They can just contribute articles and have them flow into your CMS and then out to your web. And that's very powerful, and it's very unique to Crafter and Alfresco. Number 4 is openness. So by openness, I mean open content. How easy is it to move your content in and out of the system? Is it in a format like XML, or is it in a proprietary database? I mean open architecture. So how pluggable is the system? And I mean open source. Is the code open? So openness isn't just about code. It's more than that. Number 5 of 7 here is the right technology. And we think that, and I think you would agree, that for the enterprise, Java is the best technology. It has the most support for integration, and it's very, very performant. And other platforms that are popular, like PHP, as soon as they need to do something that's heavy lifting, like a faceted search, they go and get Solr. And then they're running Java and PHP, so you might as well just run Java. And this is our technology stack. So it's very modern. It's Spring-based, Spring MVC and Java. Our persistence tier is MongoDB and Alfresco and Solr. That's all document-oriented. You can script in Groovy and FreeMarker, and you can use any front-end framework that you want. So it's a very modern platform. And then number 6 here, I know I'm blowing through these, but I'm already over time, is the right architecture. And we think that a decoupled architecture in a web experience management platform is the right approach. And what I mean by decoupled is that the authoring environment is completely separate from the delivery environment. And there's a lot of benefits to this, because you can, first of all, you can scale these 2 environments differently. and you have usually have different security models on these platforms. You have different SLAs on these platforms. So there's a lot of reasons to decouple. And then also, because you can publish from your authoring environment to your delivery environment, you already have that push capability that we talked about. So that's sort of natively built in. Okay. So I actually want to talk a little bit about how we use Alfresco quickly before we get to the last slide here. And so Crafter, this is Crafter's architecture, right? And we have basically Crafter Studio, which is the authoring environment that sits on top of the Alfresco repository. So Alfresco is part of the authoring environment, and content authors work in Studio, which is a web-based application to create and manage their content. We'll see a little demo here in a bit. And then that content is persisted in the repository as XML. Okay? It's put through workflow, and then it's published to one or more delivery channels. And you see a bunch of examples over here. Crafter Engine, which is our high-performance dynamic content delivery engine based on Spring MVC. Native mobile applications, LifeRay portals, social networks like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and then any other custom deployment channel that you want to deploy to. A little bit more about how we use Alfresco. We use it for all the basic capability. We store the content in Alfresco, of course. It's the bit bucket for XML, for images, for CSS, and so on. We use it for permissions, for version control, and check in and check out. We also get a lot of value from the rules engine. This is one of the key, killer features in Alfresco, is that if somebody creates some content, we can start workflows, and we can enforce policies. And this is a major advantage that doesn't exist in some of the other platforms that are based on JCR repositories. We also get the advantage of the metadata extraction. So we can pull metadata from images and other kinds of content, PDFs and so on. We have a really great image transformation capability from Alfresco, right? So we can crop images and filter images and so on. And we get shared drive access. So you can use your native tools against Crafter. And then finally, with web scripts, you can create your own APIs into the content. So we have Crafter has APIs, Alfresco has RESTful APIs, and you can create your own. So that's also very powerful. And then, so finally, you can see here that this is a pretty enterprise-friendly technology. I mean, it's strategic, and it's hybrid, and it's multi-channel. And then our last differentiator is performance, right? So if you are going to personalize your content, you have to be able to deliver that content very, very quickly, because you can't just put a CDN in front and hope that your website's going to be delivered quickly. Of course, you can still use CDN, but the base page has to be generated individually for the user. So the system has to be able to quickly generate that page, and the footprint of the technology has to remain relatively small. And I think there's just some great numbers up here. So if you've got a system that doesn't perform, a 1-second delay in page load time can result in a 7% loss in conversions, 11% less page views, and 16% less user satisfaction. And so they put this in dollar terms here. If your site were to make $100,000 a day, you could lose over $2.5 million a year in sales. So that more than justifies any thinking about whether you should re-platform or not, just based on performance. So those are our reasons. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Piergiorgio from Sourcesense. He's going to give you a quick case study, and then we're going to do a little demo, and then we'll take some questions. All right.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Russ. So let's start this quick. You can set up my presentation, please. Yeah. I got you. So my name is Piergiorgio Lucidi. I'm a certified Alfresco instructor. I'm certified Alfresco engineer. I'm a contributor of the community of Alfresco. So I contributed as a wiki gardener, forum moderator, and I support users. I support users in the forums. I'm also a contributor in the Apache Software Foundation and in JBoss community. I contributed with Packet Publishing. I wrote a book about Alfresco, and I have done some technical reviewing about other 5 books about Alfresco. So I work at Sourcesense. So Sourcesense is an open source system integrator. So we work only with open source technologies. And we are an Alfresco partner, but we are also a Crafter partner. And now we want to share with you this case. So we have worked for one of our customers that is an European bank. And we have implemented all the WCM infrastructure using Crafter. So this is just the agenda of my very quick presentation. So we will see some background, the goals, the challenges, and the architecture of this WCM infrastructure, and the results, the final results. So the bank, what is the bank? What needs a bank for their websites? So a bank sells something similar to accounts, credit cards, savings, insurances, and they have a network of promoters to support their clients locally. So what is the problem? The problem is that this bank was structured with different CMS systems. So for each section of their websites, there was a specific CMS systems to manage that content, and each group of users used a specific software, a specific WCM system. So different WCM systems. So we have many vertical applications. So the architecture is very complex, and that's not easy to manage, not only from the editor's side, but also from a developer side to evolve the infrastructure in a good way. So what they have now, they have new website requirements. So the marketing send a new requirement about all the new websites, and now we have the first prerequisite is that this website must be responsive. So the website must be built using responsive templates, and here Crafter fits very well because we have the Crafter engine that allows us to build responsive templates, and the domain model that includes images with the different element for the single image. So because we are using a responsive template, we can set in Crafter, we can configure Crafter to set different images for each responsive template. So this is a very good way to manage the WCM infrastructure for images. So we can manage components. So page, we have the single page, and we can configure each section of the page that we want to reuse in different page templates with components. And here we can set all the metadata for each component and each section. So we can create groups of properties that we want to reuse in different components of different pages. We can manage associations. So this means that we can create different components on the websites, and we can create association between contents. And another cool feature that we have implemented using Crafter is the search, because we have these three requirements that we have covered very well with Crafter. So the relevance, so the editors can select the relevance for each content to manage the priority of the result set when the users execute the search. So with a level of relevance, the editors can control the priority of the result set. The advanced search, because Crafter, the delivery node of Crafter is based on Apache Solr, that is a search engine, an open source search engine. And here we have a very strong engine. So each field can be indexed, and we can execute specific Solr queries very well. We also used the suggester. So the suggester is another component of Apache Solr that allows users to execute a search with a keyword. This keyword will be suggested by the engine, and then the engine will return a live search, very short result set with a live search that helps users before executing an advanced search. So with a live search, a user can find directly a content in a very quick way. So we have introduced a new WCM infrastructure, and we have a unique level of the WCM infrastructure. Now there is the Crafter engine and the Crafter Studio at the editorial environment. So this unique infrastructure will deliver contents for all the public websites, for intranets, and for any other applications that need to publish contents. So for every WCM requirement now there is Crafter. So this central system will be used for every type of applications that needs to publish content. So, and we are implementing the redundancy management. So this means that each content must be tracked. So the editors can decide for each content where this content must be published. So for where is the content and when must be published. So we can track every content. So this is a little extension that we have done with Alfresco and Crafter to track content in different applications. We have implemented many things with Crafter. The customer would like to have a high level of customization, and from the content modeling side, we have a strong content modeling engine because we have the Crafter modeling based on the XML format, and we have the Alfresco modeling. So in this way, we can manage different modeling side for the WCM side and the repository side. We have also an high reuse of page templates because Crafter is based on consists the Crafter engine of templates and contents. So we have these two things separated. So it's a very good way to implement WCM. And we have integrated different applications directly using the Crafter engine. So this means that applications don't invoke calls against the repository of Alfresco, but against the Crafter engine. And this is a very good approach to integrate a WCM system. So the challenges was to avoid the fragmentation of contents, because with different targets for the publishing process, so we have to avoid the fragmentation, and these can be covered by tracking all the contents. So we can track where is the content and in the infrastructure. Allow editors to use a unique user interface. It's not easy. It's very challenging because, as you can imagine, this group of users, each group of users used a different WCM system. So this is very challenging. So we have to solve all the little questions about the user interface of Crafter, and we have simplified the architecture. So the hardware now, we have an Alfresco cluster, as you will see, and we have a unique software tier, so a unique service exposed for publishing content. So now we have a unique infrastructure, a unique architecture dedicated to the WCM problem. So we have an Alfresco cluster with the Crafter Studio to deliver for the editorial environment. We have the Crafter Preview, that is the Crafter engine to deliver content, and we have the delivery nodes. So the delivery nodes will be used by the front-end applications to deliver directly all the contents. So based on the Crafter engine, Apache Solr, and a MongoDB instance for the user-generated content. This is the high-level architecture. So we have a load balancer. This is the editorial environment. So we have the Crafter Studio and the Crafter engine dedicated to preview the content for editors. We have another level of load balancer, and we have a standard Alfresco cluster with 2 nodes. Okay, so as you can see, Crafter fits with Alfresco. This is the front-end environment. So we have a load balancer with many delivery nodes of Crafter. Each delivery node includes Crafter engine, Apache Solr, and the editorial environment push contents against these delivery nodes. Okay. For each delivery nodes, the users that use this website can interact with the platform, and we have implemented just the saving of the ratings for pages. So each user can give a rate for the page quality. and this information is stored in a MongoDB database. MongoDB is provided by the Crafter platform. So the results is that we have integrated very well Crafter with enterprises. We have Alfresco, and so this means that we can use the CMIS standard and Alfresco rules to implement the backend processes. In the delivery node of Crafter, we can inject Spring Beans and Groovy templates. So this means that we can integrate every applications that we need to integrate. And we have customized the rich text editor, okay? So very good way to integrate the Crafter, because there is not too much effort to do all this stuff. We have great load test results. In the average 1 second to generate a page without CDN, I mean. So this means that we are only using Crafter. So as you can imagine, if you have a CDN in front of Crafter, you can have better results. But these results is very good for us. And we have refined content management, because the editorial, the editors are very happy to manage content in this way. And we have refined advanced search. We can execute specific queries to build pages, or to give some advanced search features to editors and users and final units. So thank you for your attention. This is my email and my website. So thank you.
I think we're going to just try to do a quick demo here before they tell us we're out of time. And if there are questions, feel free to come up at the end and we'll take them. So I'm just going to pull up this. Where'd it go? Yeah, here we go. Here we go. So this is just a quick demo. It'll just show you the editorial capabilities of Crafter. I'm going to talk through it. So this is Crafter Studio. This is on the left-hand side of that diagram. When I log in, you can see Crafter Studio is part of Alfresco's Share. You have all of the Share features, but you have My Websites here, okay, which is a dashlet added by Crafter Studio. You can create new sites based on site templates. So this is an easy way to get up and running with your site. And so you can create a template for a microsite or a full site and be able to spin up new sites based on that template very quickly. Just for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to start with an existing site that we have here, and it's called Rosie's Rivets. When I click on that, what happens is I'm taken to a dashboard, or sorry, here this is basically your in-context preview, and you've got your authoring tools overlaid on top of that. You can actually expand those authoring tools into a little palette here. And so in-context preview is the editing environment. It's fully functional, but it's in a safe editing sandbox. Okay? And I'm just sort of going through and clicking on some of the tools here, showing that. Okay, if we, you can see you can actually use the navigation of the site. So that's kind of what I mean by fully functional. So I can actually just click on the navigation of the site and move around inside that preview environment. It's just like a site. Or I can actually use the tools and navigate in from a top-down perspective. This is a category page, just shows some of the Solar capability here. It's just an example of being able to use Solar's capabilities for facets. Here you can see, for example, we can tell exactly how many items in the repository are jeans with the color blue. We understand data types. We understand, and we can sort based on those data types and dates and things. So we get the full power of Solar, and we can use that to not only search the content but also target it. Okay, so this is, you can see here, is just a regular old web page, but you want, in a multi-channel world, you want to be able to publish to different devices. So this just shows you how Crafter can show you exactly what that content's going to look like on different channels. In this case, an iPhone. So we can actually, in the editorial environment, test it on the iPhone before we publish. Okay, and you can install all kinds of devices there. All right, then if we head over to the About page here, let's say we want to edit this content. That's very, very easy to do. We can simply turn on in-context editing. When we do that, we get pencils over different regions on the page, and we can just click on where we want to edit and then edit it. So I'm just showing you how you can turn these things on and off, and then ultimately when you want to edit, you click and just edit. So here's a rich text editor, and you can see that actually this isn't just like some rich text editor slapped into the environment. There's actually, it understands your style sheets. People are working in their styles. So for example, we can insert a subheading here, and we can set the style for it. And it's semantic markup. We try not to use code that isn't portable in the rich text editor. We can easily insert images from data sources. So if you have existing digital asset management systems, or you want to pull images from the repository, that's easy. In this case, I'm going to pull an image from the desktop. When that image is uploaded into Alfresco, it can start workflows. It can kick off transformations. It can do all kinds of things. I can also size the image here, and I can format it. And you can see how easy this is. This doesn't require any understanding of HTML in order to create a really nice presentation, right? So we're just filling out a description here. If I click out and I want to edit it again, I can just click on it again and get back. Okay, if I go down here, just another example of clicking in here and maybe editing in my styles there. So just editing that block quote. And if we were to look at the HTML there, that would actually be a block quote tag styled by the style sheets of the site. So if you update your style sheet, it updates your rich text editor. Now when we save that, it updates it for everybody to see. Okay, so now that content's unlocked. Other editors can work on it. Another type of editing is not just on individual content fields, but sometimes we want to edit the layout, right? So I talked about that in my presentation, the ability for non-technical authors to edit a layout. And here you can see when they go into page component mode, they can actually see regions on the page, and they can move components around. So I can pick this component up, put it over there, and just move it from region to region. And as a template designer, you can define what those regions are. Okay, and so I'm just going to do a couple of adds and removes here just to show you how that works.
Regions are only columns?
Oh,
Grids as well?
it can be, really it's just, you just decide where you want it to go. So it can be a single block, it can be a column. I just added a map, okay, so a map control. In this case, it only has one field. What's the address? So we were in San Francisco, so I use San Francisco as the example here, and it was just that easy. You build the control, you build a component or a widget for a map, and then you can allow your authors to add it. They don't need to know anything about it. We can also do some more advanced things. That's a pretty simple component, but let's say we remove this one here. If this demo guy gets around to it here. Okay. Just going to switch the user. I'll come back to that. So, okay, well, I'll explain what's going on here. So I've opened up targeting, and I'm actually, you can see up here, I'm acting as the anonymous user, and I'm just about to, in the editorial environment, I'm about to assume this other type of user who has a geolocation set up in the environment as somebody in the southeast. So we'll kind of come back to that. So now I'm going to move this component over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add a new component called nearest store. So it's just a widget that we want people to be able to put on their pages. So they drop that, and this one requires only that you add the number of stores to display. So let's fill that out. We're going to say one store, and then okay, here it says the nearest store is Fort Lauderdale, which is why I switched users. So basically, because I'm in the authoring environment, I'm acting as a persona from the southeast. The nearest store to me is Fort Lauderdale. And then what I can do is I can actually switch personas as an author. I can test that component. So I can switch to somebody in the US Northeast, okay? And so here I have a bunch of properties, and one of those is a geolocation, which presumably is somewhere in the Northeast. And when I assume that persona, then the component shows me, okay, this is content, this is a store from Boston. So that just shows you a little bit of content targeting, and also some of the advanced capabilities. We can actually target content to the user's geo, which in the authoring environment comes from the authoring environment in the persona, but in the runtime comes from the device, the browser, and so on. Okay. So another type of editing is that we talked about being able to use, Dreamweaver and Photoshop and things like that. So here I want to edit this image. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to get GIMP, okay? And GIMP is like Photoshop, except it's cheap. It's free. And so I've opened up this image in the repository. When I save it, you're going to see how that works. And I'll just make this bigger here. And let's colorize it. So we're going to use a rich desktop tool here to change the color of this image. And we're going to make it a little more copper, change it to a kind of a copper rivet. These are supposed to be the little rivets on your jeans. And so it looks, so that looks about good. So now we can say OK. And then we export this image, right, from this desktop tool. So let's do that. And when I do that, you can see volumes, web dev, web projects. So I'm actually mounting Alfresco as web dev. And basically, based on my permissions, who I am, I will have different access into the repository. What's neat is as soon as I save this, now I can go back to my authoring environment and just refresh this page, and I see that in real time. And that was, that could have kicked off a workflow. It's audited, it's versioned, and now I can tell my designers, you work in the environment with everybody else, right? Don't work offline and then throw stuff over the wall to us that we have to integrate. Okay. If we go to the front page here, let's just do a little bit of targeting, a little bit more targeting. So right now I'm acting as this young female in the US Northeast, but this is generic content. It's unisex branding. What if I want to give a unique set of tiles to specific types of users? So what I can do is, if I click on this editing, I can go into that component and I can see this is a component called a homepage scenario. And this particular one is called the default scenario, right? So it's generic, it's for everybody. And there's a content model there that's specific to this site, but at the bottom we have targeting criteria. And so we've just chosen to tag this content with gender and season. And so for the generic content, we've tagged both genders and all seasons. Okay? And so that's the fallback. Now, to create a targeted experience, we need to create some targeted content. So I've already set some of that up. And if we go into, okay, so it's just showing I'm female. It's female and fall is in the profile, in the persona. So okay, let's set up some content for that person so we can test it. Okay, so we go in here, we go to components, and we go into components and we go to homepage scenarios, and we're gonna, we could either create a new one, or I actually started one here called Female Young Fall Northeast. So I can edit that. This is just so you don't have to watch me upload images and stuff. So when we edit this, go ahead and edit it. You can see it's a homepage scenario. It's for females in the fall, and I've added collateral for that scenario and branding for that scenario. And if we scan down past all that content, what you see is targeting and criteria, and I've tagged female, but I haven't tagged the season. So let's go ahead and tag the fall season for this content, and then save it. And as soon as I save it, boom, the targeting rules run. The system picks up the content that's best suited for that user, and it displays it. Okay. And now what I can do is I can actually go into, I can go to targeting and I can test that rule. So I can go back to the anonymous user and I can see, as I switch personas, are the targeting rules working as I expect? And then once I'm satisfied with that, I could say, okay, now let's make sure that this works on different channels. So I can go in and say, show me this on a mobile device. And now I see content targeted to the user, targeted to the device, and it's that quick. And you can imagine if we add on languages and A/B scenarios, we need tools to make sure that we can easily test all those permutations very quickly. And these tools do that. So along those lines, let's say we want to test, we want to do some A/B testing around these buttons. We're almost done here. So if we open up multivariant testing here, we can see that we're running 2 experiments on the platform. The first is homepage call to action buttons, red versus blue. So as an author, if I've created this scenario, I want to test what the blue buttons are going to look like with the scenario. So I can just click on blue and in the environment see that variation. Okay, I can even go into publishing channel and choose the smartphone, and now I see content targeted to the device, to the user, and a specific variation. So again, it's very, very easy to test all of those things in the environment. And once I'm done, I can then publish. So I can go up to Go Live, for example, or Schedule. And in this case, I'm going to use Go Live. And you can see I can choose a date and time to launch this content, or I can make it live right now. I can choose an environment. Do I want it to go to QA? Do I want it to go to staging? Do I want it to go to production? I can add comments. I can add broadcast messages for social media, and so on. And I can push this out. I can also, if I'm not an administrator, then I wouldn't have rights to publish immediately, so that would actually kick off a workflow, and somebody would have to approve that. Okay. So this is actually just going to say go make this live, and you can see when we set that, we set a date there, so now it's showing as scheduled. So the system will wait till a certain day and then publish that. So that is our basic demo. I know we're out of time. Is there any questions that you guys have immediately, or? Yeah, go ahead.
You know that Alfresco had the previous WCM module.
Yeah.
It's no more maintained.
Yes.
Do you have a case where Crafter came to replace?
Yeah, we've done that many, many times. We've replaced the AVM. In fact, the AVM was based on XML. Crafter is based on XML. We even have some tools to port your old AVM projects over to Crafter.
Can your backend be in French?
The authoring environment we don't have a French translation for the authoring environment yet, but we will before the end of next year.
Can you completely decouple backend from your front end? I mean, only use the authoring?
Yes, you can choose one platform versus the other. Yep. Yeah.
Separate applications.
Yeah, it's Studio on top of Alfresco and Crafter Engine. They're completely separated, completely decoupled.
And so the users and the groups are managed in the backend, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
How are you doing the sync? If you are connected as Russ on your website, you are recognized as Russ on the backend, I guess.
Well, typically they're different authentication systems. Usually people will use their corporate authentication for the authoring environment, and then out on the web they'll have an LDAP that's for customers or something like that. We also have a profile platform, which I don't have time to talk about, but yeah. Anything else? Well, thank you so much for your time. We're out of time, so thanks. And if you have any questions, come find Piergiorgio or me. We have a booth downstairs. I have cards and literature up here if you guys want it, and I'll see you outside. Thank you.